Welcome to College Town Talk. I'm Jonathan Frank.
And I'm Shan Stout.
Well, Shan, we've got a great show. We're talking to...
Wait a second. Okay, whoa. Are you joining this Zoom call in a tuxedo?
Shan, we are interviewing the chair of the Tennessee Tech Board of Trustees today, Trudy Harper. We got to dress to impress. Did you not get my memo?
Well, I feel desperately underdressed for this, but I do know about Trudy. And we're talking to Randy Wilmore, a Tennessee Tech alumnus and the Chief Relationship Officer at Farm Bureau Health Plans, who is also the winner, wait for this, of the Alumni Association's 2024 Outstanding Service Award. What a great guy. But Jonathan, you do know this is a podcast and no one can actually see us.
Yeah, it's called professionalism, Shan. Look it up.
And is that a clip-on bow tie?
How dare you? And also, yes.
Well, let's get to these interviews ASAP because I'm sure that is a rented tuxedo and you're on the clock. Up first, it's our conversation with the chair of the Tennessee Tech Board of Trustees, a two-time Tech graduate herself, Trudy Harper.
Welcome back to College Town Talk. Today we are joined by the chair of Tennessee Tech's Board of Trustees, Trudy Harper. Trudy is a proud Tennessee Tech alumna holding both a bachelor's and master's degree from Tech's College of Engineering and received the college's 2016 Outstanding Alumni Award. A titan of the energy industry, Trudy previously served as president of Tenaska Power Services Company, the power marketing affiliate of Tenaska, one of the largest privately held companies in the United States. While Trudy retired from Tenaska in 2012, she didn't slow down. After moving back home to Soddy Daisy, Tennessee, Trudy continued to devote herself to philanthropy, including serving on the board of Chattanooga's Siskin Hospital and volunteering with Sports, Arts, and Recreation of Chattanooga, or SPARC, which is dedicated to promoting inclusive recreational activities for those with disabilities. Trudy has served on the Tennessee Tech Board of Trustees since 2017 and became the first woman to chair the Board of Trustees in 2019. Most recently, she was reappointed to the board and confirmed without opposition in the Tennessee General Assembly in 2023. Trudy is also a member of the Tennessee Tech Foundation Board of Directors, and she joins us now. Trudy, welcome to College Town Talk.
Thank you so much, Jonathan. It's always good to have a chance to visit with you.
Well, Trudy, I'd like to start by talking about your board service because there may be listeners who don't know all that this entails. So for our listeners, members of the Board of Trustees at Tech are appointed by the governor and confirmed by a vote of the Tennessee General Assembly. So this is not something that is done lightly. What did that mean to you to know that now two different governors have appointed you to this board and then to be confirmed without a single no vote in the state legislature? I don't think that's something that happens often.
Well, I really don't know about that. I will say it's been humbling to have been appointed originally by Governor Bill Haslam, who had the great vision to create this Focus Act that gave Tennessee Tech its own board, which has made, I believe, a big difference in our direction, certainly in our governance and the way that we approach the future. And so it's been humbling to be appointed to that original board and then again to be reappointed. But I have to say that if I would be remiss if I didn't say the most humbling part about the whole thing, though, is the people I get to serve alongside, in addition to the president and the faculty representative and the student representative. I get to serve alongside industry leaders in technology, bank executives, business owners. I even get to serve as an astronaut. So it's really, really been fun, and it is a wonderful opportunity with a lot of responsibility, of course.
Well, Trudy, I can completely see why two governors wanted you on this board. I mean, you are definitely a team player and an asset to your colleagues. Now, we've gotten a chance to talk to other trailblazing women on this podcast over the past year. And so very often we hear our guests tell us that, well, they didn't necessarily see themselves as groundbreakers at the time. And they only learned after the fact that they were part of a historic first for women in their field. And I think that's really amazing. So what about you? You were a leader in the energy sector going back to the 1980s. Now, that was when our boardrooms and workplaces were very different places for women. And I remember a lot about the early 90s in my case. And as we mentioned in the introduction, you are the first female Board of Trustees chair in Tennessee Tech's history. So, to you, what has been the significance of that, particularly as we see this continued push to engage more women in STEM fields?
Well, I'm really glad you asked the question because I don't reflect on this very often. As you said, probably like most women or like most people who look different from the other people who are on boards and what have you. I don't reflect on this a lot. So it was nice to stop and think about it. I certainly couldn't help but notice in the beginning of my career that I was a little unusual, but I tried not to ever focus on that. I taught at Tennessee Tech for about 9.5 years, and I used to tell my students, if you look different from all the people that run your company, just don't make a big deal about that. Just lean in and act like you belong there, and that's what I've tried to do. Um, but again, it's for me, it's been a real opportunity. I don't see myself as a trailblazer. My own mother was a trailblazer. So when your mother's been one, I don't think you can think of yourself as one. But then I look around at Tennessee Tech and I think, my goodness, I can't hardly be described as a trailblazer when the leadership of the university, our provost is a woman who's also an electrical engineer, by the way. Big whoop to the electrical engineers in the world. And our CFO is a woman, and many of the president's cabinet are women. We've got women deans and chairmen. And I'm so honored to just serve alongside these folks. My vice chair is Radonna Rose, who is a very important woman in the state of Tennessee, ran Farm Bureau. So I'm very thankful. I do think we still need a lot more women in STEM fields, and I've personally I've created a scholarship for women in electrical and computer engineering or mechanical engineering. Hopefully, that will encourage some of the brightest and best to come to Tennessee Tech.
Well, Trudy, you just referenced that scholarship, and I know this isn't something you talk about often, but you have been a generous financial supporter of Tennessee Tech in many ways over the years, and you've always found ways to give that put the spotlight on others. And I want to ask you about. Most recently, you made a gift to rename the Tech Foundry after your longtime friend Gary Durham, and had a chance to be there for that event as we all watched as he found out in real time that this facility that he thought he was just on a tour, and then he learns that it's going to be named after him. It was such a powerful moment. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Well, I have to say, Jonathan, as you're talking about it, it makes me puddle up all over again. It was a very emotional day for me. Though, I have to reflect. I have had tremendous success in business, which has led to some economic success, and that's a blessing beyond what I could have ever imagined. And when I think about that, and I think, and when you're blessed with some economic success, you have some choices to make. What are you going to do with your treasures? And for me, Tennessee Tech has been one of the major um, focuses of my philanthropic giving. And because I believe strongly in the opportunity for young people to have education and an affordable education and good education. And I've just made Tennessee Tech one, if not the biggest of my philanthropic focuses. But then one of the blessings that comes along with getting to give is sometimes if you can give at big enough levels, they'll let you name something for somebody. And God knows nobody needs to have anything named after me, but there are some really important people in my life. And Gary Durham is one of those people who Gary was born with a vision impairment and decided to go to Tennessee Tech in the early 70s to study industrial technology. Now, you're blind and you're going to study in a foundry. That just doesn't seem like it fits. But Gary embraced that, and he was a superstar student and has embraced his time at Tennessee Tech his whole life. And I'm so proud of Gary and what he's achieved with the limitation that he was dealt. And I hope that our students will learn from Gary's story and will be inspired, because those of us who don't have those limitations, we got no excuse, right? So hopefully, Gary's name will carry a lot of weight in that area, and I know he's very proud of that, as am I.
Well, I think that's wonderful, and I know for someone to speak so highly of you, that that would hold a lot of weight with Gary in itself. Now, speaking of something that is lovely, the new Ashraf Islam Engineering Building. Now, first off, I was able to visit that building under construction a while back, and I found out that every piece of glass has its own IP address. So, talking about STEM and women in STEM, that was amazing to me. It is an extraordinary building, and we're so blessed to have something of that technology here at Tennessee Tech. But outside the building, there's a beautiful new sculpture. And for our listeners who haven't seen it, it is soaring 70 feet tall. It's a beautiful purple structure, of course, named Wings. But I want to talk about the sculptor. The sculptor was John Henry, and he sadly passed away in 2022. And I understand that you considered John a good friend. So, in memory of John, what can you tell us about him, and what does it mean to you to have this monumental sculpture on Tech's campus for students, faculty, for you to see and enjoy? It has to have such a depth for you.
Oh, it really does, Shan. Thank you for asking about that. I have to back up and tell you a little bit. In the small world that is the small world. When President Oldham and I first started talking about the Ashraf Islam Engineering Building, I said to him, I really hope we're intentional about art for that building. I'm not an artist, but I love art, and I wanted to be intentional and not just come and go and get something from Hobby Lobby and hang on the walls of that spectacular, iconic building that we're building. And he said, it's funny. I'm glad you mentioned that. I've got an idea about somebody that I just really love. And, he kind of did this. Oh, he's from Chattanooga. You might even know him. Do you know John Henry? And I said, oh my goodness. John Henry is a friend, and I own two of his pieces already, two of his sculptures. And John Henry is maybe best known now because he has the tallest sculpture in Texas. And if you are from Texas, you think the tallest sculpture is the sculpture of Sam Houston driving down the interstate toward College Station, but it's not now. It's a sculpture called Tatlin Sentinel, and it's in Dallas, done by John Henry. John was a spectacular man. He was bigger than life in so many ways, and he did sadly pass away. This will be his next to the last sculpture he ever did. John had a sculpture field in Chattanooga that I encourage people to visit, sculpture fields at Montague Park. And they're going to have the very last sculpture that John did, and it's going to be called Best for Last. But John was a self taught engineer, but very much an artist. And I look at Wings and all of John's sculptures and think about that they are almost gravity defying, and I hope that other students, engineers, are will look at that and think, how did he do that? How did he make that massive 70-foot sculpture feel so airy and light? And then to have it painted purple and to have it in front of our new engineering building. And I have to also shout out to the memory of JJ and Millard Oakley, who also loved John Henry and were willing to invest in that sculpture. So it's a very special personal memory for me, and a wonderful gift to the university. And I know that John was so proud to be part of what we were doing at Tennessee Tech. By the way, John was a Kentucky fan, so I have to say he was not a fan of our local schools. He would want a shout out to the University of Kentucky.
But we're not going to paint the sculpture blue. He can forget about
Oh,
that.
that's right. That's right. It's purple.
Finally, Trudy, we like to end each interview on this program with the same question, and that is, what is one way that Tennessee Tech has impacted your life?
Well, to me, that's the easiest question you could ever ask me, because I've thought about it literally since I graduated in 1984. And I have to go back and say, of course, there's so many ways. I got so much technical skill. I got so much leadership opportunity, education, exposure to the world. There were so many things. I met so many bright people that gave me so much, but by far the biggest impact to me was the people that I got to meet and love there, both faculty who I'm still very much in touch with and very much think of like family, and then the people that truly are my family of choice, my college friends that were roommates of mine. I'm still very, very close to several of my college roommates, to many of my classmates. I have two of my classmates and roommates living next door to me. I have so many memories of so many great times, friendships that have lasted truly a lifetime, and you don't realize that when you're there that those are going to be that impactful to you, but it certainly has been for me. And I guess it's that sort of self-selection of those kindred spirits of mine that chose Tennessee Tech at a time when you're all very impressionable and kind of building your life. So anyway, very, very proud of that.
Well, Trudy, thank you so much for being our guest today on College Town Talk, and thank you for your service to Tennessee Tech.
And Jonathan, thank you, and Shan both. You all are a delight, and we're very, very proud to have you affiliated with Tennessee Tech.
Welcome back to College Town Talk. Our next guest is a Tennessee Tech College of Business graduate from the class of 1982, who today is a successful industry and community leader. Now, Randy Wilmore serves as Chief Relationship Officer for Farm Bureau Health Plans in Columbia, Tennessee, and is the immediate past board chair of Leadership Middle Tennessee. He also serves on the board of the Tennessee Intercollegiate State Legislature, that's a mouthful, TISL, and that is a foundation and recently concluded more than 20-year run on the Tennessee Tech Alumni Association Board of Directors. That is outstanding. Oh my goodness. Already his resume is so much more impressive than mine. I do not deserve to interview him today. Randy has generously supported his alma mater as a True to Tech donor for more than 40 years and a longtime President's Club member. Now, for all these reasons and more, Randy will be honored on homecoming weekend with the Tennessee Tech Alumni Association's 2024 Outstanding Service Award. But he's paying us a visit first to tell us all about his years in Tennessee Tech's College Town. Randy, so glad you're here. Welcome to College Town Talk.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate the invitation and glad to always talk to folks back in God's country and in Cook Vegas.
That's what my husband calls it, God's country. Okay, Randy, we want to get down to business. There is so much we want to ask you about, but let's not bury the lead. Like we just said in the introduction, you are the recipient of Tech's 2024 Outstanding Service Award. First off, congratulations. Now, we had the chance to talk with you during this in-between time where the award has already been announced publicly, but the ceremony itself is not until homecoming weekend in November. So can you take us back to that moment when you found out you'd be receiving this year's award? How did it feel? Did they call you? Did you get a letter, a postcard? I'm not sure. I've never received that kind of prestigious award. And have you thought about what you're going to say in that big acceptance speech?
Well, first of all, I was shocked. Susan, who's now the executive director of the Crawford alumni, had reached out, wanted to schedule a call, and I made the assumption it was, I was going to be asked to do something else, which would have been great because I had just rolled off the board a few months before that, the alumni board, and I was truly speechless. I was surprised. Had no idea. Got a little emotional. It took me a minute to get words to come out because I love tech, and it was a very, very special time. So that's how that call went. I did find out later. I called my wife. She goes, "Well, we submitted this information. Somebody had asked for this, and we didn't know why." So I said, "Well, I guess that was why." So it was a shock. Again, I've served on the selection committee many years during that time on the alumni board. And I know the folks that we've selected before, and part of me feels I'm not worthy for the award, but at the same time, the great deal of pride and honor in being selected. As far as the preparation, they're very clear. They want 3 to 5 minutes, which is not a lot of time. So I did start making some notes, and I'm going to try to kind of condense those down and kind of keep it between the ditches when I get ready to do the acceptance speech. But I mean, the main thing that I want to probably emphasize, and this is tech and also the service part, anything I've ever done, it's all been about people. It's so funny. When I became the chief relationship officer here, my 20-year-old son said, "Well, duh, that's exactly what you do." But again, a lot of the things I've done over the years has been either love for people, or again, the love of service. And I've just always either a gift or a curse. I've always done that. I've joked with my wife before, I don't play a lot of golf. I don't hunt. I don't fish. I do civic and community things. And that's kind of how I've gotten to this point.
Well, Randy, in your acceptance speech, if you run that 3 to 5 minutes up a little bit, I don't think they're allowed to take the award. I think we're okay. You're in the
okay, good. Thank you.
Well, Randy, your comments about your love of service kind of segue very well into my next question, because that award is so well deserved because you really have made service such a big part of your life. From your service on the Tennessee Tech Alumni Board, which is how I got to know you, to your involvement with Leadership Middle Tennessee and the Tennessee Intercollegiate State Legislature Foundation. And I know you will soon be starting a term on the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society Foundation Board. And, it's a sacrifice to serve in these roles, but these are also things that you are really passionate about. So can you talk a little bit about what these roles have meant to you and why you wanted to serve in these ways?
Well, I think first, I've always joked about I have a hard time saying no. So that's one of the reasons maybe I've been not only asked, but have served in so many different ways. I did finally at one point in my career figure out there's only so many things you can do. And again, then you start trying to really focus on the things that you really feel are important to you, that you're passionate about. The most recent one that you mentioned with the Leukemia Society, my 20-year-old son, who's, I guess, technically a sophomore still at Tech, was diagnosed with leukemia between Thanksgiving and Christmas last year. So he's had to sit out so far. Hopefully he's going to be back at Tech in January. But I'd always been a passive contributor and supporter because I had friends that supported the cause, but I kind of did it just because I, again, was asked to help support. All of a sudden, then there's a real reason for me, a personal reason to support that. Again, the other things I've been real fortunate, serving as chairman of Leadership Middle Tennessee is one of the best experiences I've ever had against a 10-county area around Davidson County. The first person ever from Murray County to serve in that position. Again, it's all about relationships. I've met people through that organization that I can pick up the phone and if I need something in Clarksville or in Lebanon or Dixon, I'll pick up the phone and I know somebody there. So again, just believe in that, believe that together, working together, we make everything better for everybody. So again, passionate about that as well. The latest is TISL. And in fact, I was honored to serve as governor a long time ago. In fact, had a meeting yesterday with our current Secretary of State, Trey Hargett, who's also a past governor. So again, another group of folks that have had a big influence over my life, having a chance to go to Nashville and as a student from Tennessee Tech and serve as Speaker of the House and then governor. And again, that's part of what Tech has done for me was put me in opportunities to really build some skills, build some confidence to do things that maybe I wouldn't have otherwise had an opportunity to do.
Well, Randy, as has been obvious throughout this interview, you have a very impressive list of accomplishments, but we can also add local television star to this because News Channel 5 recently sat down with you and your friend Mike Williams, who is an MTSU alumnus, to talk about the history of the Tennessee Tech MTSU rivalry, including a very unconventional trophy of sorts known as Shinny Ninny. Now, I'm telling you, when I saw this, I knew why Jonathan gave me this question to ask you because it's a little bit of a tongue twister. And it sounds ridiculous, especially when I say it. Tell us how that segment, first off, on the news came about. And for the uninitiated, would you tell us about the legend of Shinny Ninny.
Great job. And it is called Shinny Ninny. Let me make sure that's clear. It's not called Harvey like those people at Middle Tennessee High School say in Murfreesboro. So just be clear about that. Mike Williams, again, is one of those relationships I in fact, developed at TISL. He was a delegate from MTSU and I was a delegate at Tech. And Tech and Austin Peay would always kind of gang up on Middle because they were bigger than us. So the two of us together could kind of offset MTSU. But Mike and some other guys from MTSU just really became friends. I realized later, especially when we stopped playing them in football, a lot of times your rivals are the ones you have the most in common with. And I really miss that. And I hate that for the university that I don't think have that rivalry that we did back in the day. Now, maybe it's a good thing we don't have that rivalry since I've got a son at Tech, because some of the things I did a few years ago, back in 1980 is when we had Raider Raid. And that's a whole other conversation. But anyway, the section on Channel 5 came up because Chip Walters, who is the voice of the Blue Raiders, and I, in fact, from Columbia, and I'm friends with, we were back and forth about the totem pole. And Mike Williams chimed in. And Mike was actually president of student body at MTSU one year when we defeated them. And he had to present the trophy or the totem pole back to us. So a very special time for me. I could always rib him about having to give the trophy back to us. And I must say, I may or may not have been involved in a couple of capturing and relocating of Shinny Ninny back to Tech during my time there. But so that really came up it was some Facebook posts. Chris from Channel 5 had reached out to Chip and said, hey, who can I talk to about this? He goes, I got the two guys you can talk to. They were right in the middle of all this. So that's how the segment came about. Again, a great tradition. I'm afraid that poor Shinny is locked up on the MTSU campus. And I think they have heightened the security after some of the successful relocation efforts that we had back in the early 80s.
Well, Randy, you've got a cousin who's been in the news a lot lately and who many people are thinking about and sending well wishes for. And that is one of our trustees, Barry Wilmore, also a Tennessee Tech alum. And he's at for anybody who's been under a rock, he's at the International Space Station on what has turned out to be a longer than expected mission. And we know that Barry's in good spirits. He actually made a surprise call into our September 26th Board of Trustees meeting, which was very exciting. But a lot of people have wanted to know, how is the family doing? And what's your message to those who have been asking about him and want to show their support as we all await his return?
Well, first of all, Barry loves what he does. And I think that's the encouraging thing for anybody. He is prepared for this. His brother Jack is closer to my age, so Jack and I are able to communicate a lot during this time, a lot more. But I know Barry came down and spoke at an event in Columbia. It's probably been 15 years ago, and he said something then that it kind of struck me then and still today. He said, "Hey, I just happen to have a really cool job." He goes, I'm a father. I'm a husband, a job that's kind of different than what other people have. So he's in great spirits. It has been a little tougher because he's got a senior daughter in high school. So he is not able to physically be there for that. Thank goodness for technology today. They're able to FaceTime or have video talks with the family. So he's not disconnected. I know when he went up the last time for 6 months, they set up a special email account where we could email back and forth and just kind of keep him in spirits and keep him, I hate to use the word grounded, but again, connected to the people here on Earth. And I made the comment one time. I said, I got an email from space, and they said, well, don't all emails kind of go through space? And I said, well, I guess you're kind of right, but I say all that to say, Barry's in good spirits. He has very strong faith. He loves what he does. I know he misses his family. That's probably the most important thing. But again, he is. Jack and I, his brother, we're talking, and he said, really, it's just focus on the mission, because again, that he was a pilot during Desert Storm. So again, this is just part of what he does, and just like being deployed in the service for a year or two and to be away from your family is no different than the men and women that protect our country today and serve our country. It's just I know he'd like to be back home, especially the senior year for his daughter, but again, he loves being on the space station, and our prayers and thoughts are with him to get him back safely home in February.
Well, I'm sure his family is very proud of him. And even though he's far away during his daughter's senior year, that's also really awesome to have a dad in space. So, I mean, that's setting her apart all day long. It has its own skill set. And I appreciate all the astronaut humor you've thrown into today's podcast. Highly.
I will say this. A lot of people, when Barry became famous as an astronaut, I said, be clear, I was the first Wilmore to take up space at Tech. That's what all my professors told me. So
that seems right. Now, finally, Randy, we like to end each interview with the same question. What is one way that Tennessee Tech has impacted your life?
Well, and I mentioned this a little earlier about developing confidence to do things. I mean, there were things I did at Tech that I probably would have never tried had I not had the opportunity at Tech. Again, I tried to walk on and play football. Again, unlike Barry, who did the same thing, who ended up being very successful, I was a walk on, carry off, is what I refer to myself as. Because of that, then. Because I didn't work out in football, I was able to go work at the radio station. So I did Tech football and women's basketball for 3 or 4 years as a result of that. Again, as a, late teen, early 20-year-old, getting to do those things, just very, very cool. Again, the interaction, if it was serving whatever capacity for the university, being homecoming chairman or whatever, dealing with the president and the provost. And just, again, these were people that were just friends. So to give me that confidence at that point, when I went out into the real world, I had some confidence that maybe I would not have otherwise had. Now, the other side of that is, and I mentioned not making it in football, I could never get elected to anything at Tech. I was defeated as freshman senator. I ran for student body president twice. One was a write-in campaign. That's a whole other conversation. But again, I experienced defeats and shortcomings and disappointments. At the same time, learn how you get over those. I mentioned TISL. Had I gotten elected student body president, I would have never run for governor of TISL. So I was able to do that. So I've learned the true meaning of when one door closes, another one opens. And again, I learned that lesson. And so when anything bad happens today, it's like, you know what? There's another thing out there. I'm going in the wrong direction. This is my direction to do something different.
Well, Randy, people don't often give as much gravity to life lessons on the south side of the lesson. Things are going up. But I do know that I agree with you on that. I think there's a lot to be said. And for any Tech students that are listening to this podcast today, just remember that, that sometimes things that feel like a failure, you can really learn a whole lot from that. And that will affect your future, how you learn to overcome things and look on the bright side and know that there's a different thing around the corner that could be waiting for you that's better. So it's sometimes good to lose an opportunity for an opportunity you're about to gain. And I've learned that in my life as well. Randy, it is a pleasure to know you. It is a pleasure to have you on our podcast today. Thank you so much for being our guest on College Town Talk.
Thank you. Appreciate it. And wings up.
Wings up.
We want to thank Trudy Harper and Randy Wilmore for being our guests today on College Town Talk.
And thanks to all of you for listening. Be sure to hit that subscribe button, leave us a great review, and share this podcast with your friends. It all helps to spread the word about the great things happening right here in Cookeville.
We'll meet you back here again next week for more conversations with the people who make Cookeville, Tennessee's college town. College Town Talk is presented by Tennessee Tech University in partnership with the Cookeville-Putnam County Visitors Bureau. Your hosts are Jonathan Frank and Shan Stout, and original music is performed by Andrew Buckner. Visit us online at tntech.edu/collegetowntalk.